Turning the lights on. Sometimes I get to the last minute and forget to do that. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve on Saturday, June 26, 2021. Wow. End of June. We're at the end of June, which is just absolutely crazy. Hi, Shalane. It's to me, it's just a bit insane to realize, I didn't post this yesterday. Sometimes I do, but yesterday it's 6 months till Christmas. We're midway between last Christmas and this coming Christmas now. It's the end of June. Wow, people tuning in. Hi, Lila. Hi, Jerry Thompson. Hello, Kirsten. Hey, good to see you. And it's crazy, crazy weather. It's funny. Ironically, we're talking about summer activities this week, and most places, particularly in the western half of the United States, are dealing with potentially record-shattering heat in some cases this weekend. And I suspect that as we're talking about summer activities, a lot of you are just going to say that your summer activity today is going to be to try to stay cool and hydrated and not move too much. Hi, Jay Zetterall. It's just, it's a bit crazy making. I was raised and grew up in Portland, Oregon, and a number of you are there in that area right now. Hi, Rick. Hi, Carla. And they're talking about shattering records by the first of the week. Like they're talking about shattering all-time. I recall that it was not unusual growing up that we would have a stretch of kind of hot weather, maybe 100-degree weather for a few days or a little bit above. In the third week of July was often that week when you hit that hot stretch. And we're not even into July yet. It's June, and they're talking about all-time records. They're talking on Monday, there's a forecast of 115 degrees in Portland. That's just crazy. And I know in other areas, I know Rick and Carla live further down in the valley and between Willamette Valley and the coast. And they're talking, what are they talking in your area, Rick and Carla? What's the forecast over the weekend and beginning of the week? For those of you in Portland and the surrounding area, Carissa's in Vernonia, and it's just insane. And there, I saw some posts yesterday where there were some people in Seattle saying that they had been talking about going to Portland to get away from the heat that they were going to be having up in Seattle, but they decided not to because it's going to be worse in Portland. And throughout the West, it's just bad. And, California, by the way, ironically, in this area where we often get the hotter weather, today, right at the moment when I checked a few minutes ago, it was mid-60s right now. In the mid-60s in Pleasanton, where I'm at, with a high today in the mid-80s. Right now, we are supposed to get over 100 degrees in the next few days here, which happens. We had that a week or so ago in this area. Up when we were up in Redding last weekend, it got up over 110. So yeah, it gets hot in California, and it's going to get hot in Redding too this weekend. But again, the entire western region, I think Utah, Kirsten, is showing high temperatures. I know that Carissa's husband, Jason, has been in Las Vegas, and that area in Nevada. They were over, I think they were over 110 as well this week. And, there are areas that are more of the high desert that tend to get that. Chelan, I think Yakima is also forecasting for some over 110 temperatures in the next few days. It's crazy. It's just crazy. Summer's here, but this is not our typical summer in a lot of places. And so take care of yourselves. If you're in one of those locations where they are, Chelan put the app, what the forecast. I've got that app, and I've seen other people post screenshots on Facebook. It's kind of funny. Some of it, I think you can filter it, but some of it, if you're not careful, uses some pretty salty language on what the forecast. But it gives some funny descriptions to go with the forecast. It gives real forecast, but then it gives some funny descriptions. Check it out. It is pretty good. But just take care of yourself. Stay cool, and we will we'll get through this. The other concern, of course, that a lot of these regions, California is an example, but I know also in Oregon and some other areas, it's been very low rain, very low moisture over this last winter and spring. And so you have drought conditions, extremely dry areas that are then more susceptible to wildfire. Last year was a bad fire season in a lot of the West, and they're predicting even more of that this year. California's been hit hard, I think, as many of you know, but so have areas in Utah, in Colorado, in Nevada, in Oregon. Oregon had a terrible fire season last year as well. Washington, Yakima area had some bad fires last year. And so, let's just pray for protection, and that we all stay safe from the heat and from any other conditions. They're saying in our area of California, and we've had drought off and on, I think much of the time that Carol and I have lived here over the last 14 and a half years, they've talked about it being drought conditions. But they're saying the drought that we're experiencing now, they're expecting this summer in our area is like in excess of a 20-year drought. And that goes beyond when we've lived here. And it's been bad some years. They're already talking about water rationing. They're already talking about concerns about the fire season, that type of thing. So anyway, I didn't want to cast a negative on our time today, but what were you asking? What's up with your guys' powers? Okay. Shalane's asking about our power. So we were having over the last couple of weeks. Actually, I shouldn't jinx it by saying anything because it's been okay the last few days. But over the last couple of weeks, it seemed like almost daily we were getting some kind of brief power outage here. And it was hard to tell. I know at least on one occasion, the first time it happened, power was out for maybe 10. It hasn't gone out for like extreme long periods of time, maybe 10, 15 minutes, sometimes only a couple of minutes, sometimes just a few seconds, and it comes back on. And I know the first time it happened a couple of weeks ago, I went outside and I could tell, we live in a condominium complex, and I could tell that other buildings, some of the other buildings were fine. Our building and a stretch of the buildings near us were out for several minutes and then came back on. And then it's been like, even during the workday, there have been several times, Carol and I still working from home, that all of a sudden in the middle of working on the computer, being in the middle of a meeting, whatever, all of a sudden everything goes out. And even if it's only out for a few seconds, when it comes back, then it takes a few minutes for the modem and the routers and everything else that you need for the internet to come completely back online, and you have to go around and check and make sure everything's come back up properly. It's just really kind of a frustrating inconvenience. Now, we've been okay the last several days. We haven't had any issues. Temperature's been down, and I don't know if the high temp is a contributor to what we've been dealing with, but anyway, yeah. Rick mentioning that excessive heat is the most deadly weather event, worse than hurricanes, and I'm going to pop it up here for a minute, worse than hurricanes, tornadoes, or floods. Yeah, and part of that, you think about the fact that we often see these sort of disaster types of, sorry, I wasn't trying to click on Shalane's comment there. Okay, adding Piper to the attendees list. You may do that. But we think about the big disastrous types of things like tornadoes and hurricanes and those types of things as being the worst. And the reality is, first of all, they are more localized in many cases. Hurricanes obviously can cover a broader area, but the number, the effect of excessive heat and the number of people who can be affected by that in terms of health and even deaths that are associated with it are much higher than we sometimes think about. So yeah, we need to be careful. Okay, I'm going to get off of that. We're going to come back to talking about summer in a minute. I want to mention some of the special days coming up. But I also want to remind you, if you're just tuning in and you haven't said hi yet, please do. If you have said hi, why not? What is the why not, Shalane? Was that why not mention? Anyway, I'm getting distracted looking at that. If you have said hi, but I haven't acknowledged you, feel free to say hello again. And I'll try to glance at the list here. I'm kind of watching two things at once here, but and trying to look into the camera so we make eye contact, right? Anyway, if you're celebrating a special day this week, we want to make sure we acknowledge it. I'll mention a couple of them coming up here, but I want to tell you that there are some interesting holidays, special days on the calendar this week. June 28th. I put this one on here because, well, sometimes you just have to acknowledge certain things. Insurance Awareness Day. June 28th, Monday, is Insurance Awareness Day. Apparently, it is a day that we're supposed to think about whether we've got sufficient coverage in our insurance to cover catastrophes that may happen. Interestingly, we were just talking about hurricanes and tornadoes. But there are other things that can affect you. And the reason that I dropped that in here is I actually spent a number of years in an earlier career working in the insurance industry. And I remember early on when Carol and I first got married that I was encouraged by a coworker to make sure that we had proper insurance, not just for our car. I think we got in our first car and I was signing up for insurance. And a coworker said, "What about your apartment?" Okay, so we got renter's insurance. Well, I think within a few months of that time, our apartment got broken into and things were stolen. And I went, wow, okay, it's a good thing that we have this. And that happened. We actually had another situation where our apartment was broken into, and you kind of went, okay, I get it now. This is a good thing to have. Now anymore, it seems like when you rent an apartment, the owners, the landlords require that you show proof of insurance. But back then it wasn't a requirement. That was back in the olden days. Anyway, Insurance Awareness Day. Double check, make sure that you know where your insurance policies are and everything's up to date. July 1st. Yes, we're going to be into July this next week. Oh, I do have coffee today. Sorry, Shalane. Satisfied? I just hadn't stopped talking long enough to take a sip. July 1st, this next week, is International Joke Day. And those of you who know me know that I love a good joke. I love a good pun. Yeah, I'm into the dad joke stuff. No, I'm not going to tell one right now. Feel free to drop some jokes into the chat if you want to. I am not going to do it. The other thing I thought was interesting coming up this week is that July 2nd is World UFO Day. I don't know if you've been following the news, but the Pentagon just released a report yesterday that they've been working on for a while that came out of several incidents in the last few years, some of which were unintentionally made public, where now the Pentagon is releasing a report on a bunch of sightings, primarily by their own pilots, by Navy and Air Force pilots that have taken place. And they're no longer referring to them as UFOs. They're calling them unidentified aerial phenomena. It's just things they can't say for sure what it is. And the interesting thing is that of these, I think there were, I can't remember now, somebody may have this information, but a couple of hundred, more than that, maybe several hundred sightings that they had in this report. There was only one that they could specifically explain away and say, this is what it actually was. The rest are unexplainable. Now, they're not saying that they're extraterrestrial or aliens from another planet. They're just saying they can't rule anything out. So I just thought that we should recognize July 2nd being World UFO Day. A couple of birthdays that I want to mention before we get into talking about summer, which I know everybody wants to talk about summer and summer fun and summer weather because of the excessive heat. Yeah. But the birthdays tomorrow, June 27th, happy birthday to Nilu Nuri. Nilu is a friend of Coffee Breaks with Steve. You may remember that several months ago, Nilu was on the show and talking about a cookbook that she published that she wrote primarily during COVID to provide something for her boys, her sons, to begin with. But anyway, Nilu was on the show. Nilu is a good friend, and happy birthday to Nilu tomorrow. And then the 29th is Kalinda Holbrook's birthday. Happy birthday, Kalinda. Kalinda is also a friend and regular watcher of Coffee Breaks with Steve. So happy birthday to Kalinda as well. If you are celebrating a birthday, an anniversary, or some other special day in this next week, go ahead and drop it in the chat so that we make sure that we acknowledge you as well. And if you have a special day coming up in July you want to make sure that we mention, you can send me a private message. Let me know so that we make sure that we have it on the list and include it in the proper week on Coffee Breaks. Okay, summer fun in 2021. The reason that I initially wanted to talk about this today, summer started officially last week, the summer solstice. We're into the summer season. And God help us, because it's hitting hard right now. But I wanted to talk about this because last summer we were in the midst of COVID. A lot of people's summer plans could not happen. I mean, a lot of things that you would normally have done, places you would have gone, festivals that normally take place, fairs, county fairs, state fairs, they were all stopped. They were all closed down last year. And we were in many cases, we were relatively quarantined, isolated. We weren't going anywhere over the summer. And so the typical things that we would have done, even family picnics, it was like you were doing good if you just went outside in some situations. We're into 2021 and everything's not back to normal, but things are starting to open up again. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what are people thinking of? What are your thoughts and your plans for the summer? This week aside, when you may choose to just stay in air conditioning or put a wet towel over your head or hold a misting fan in front of your face and not move very much. What are you thinking about doing? What have you been discussing doing? What have you already done that is more summer activity related, summer vacation related? And what can you share with others on here? And I'll share a little bit about some of the things we are doing and talking about doing. And I'd love to hear your plans and your ideas. And if you're not ready to get back out there yet, if you're still dealing with some of the issues around COVID, some cases I know people have issues with their own health or with family situations or other situations that may not be ready or able to get back out there yet. And what are you doing? What does that look like for you? So I'd love to see your ideas in here. We haven't done too much yet. We just started recently getting back out even to do some like breakfasts at a restaurant. Last week, Carol and I actually went to, I used to work at the Bankhead Theater in Livermore, California, just a few miles from here. And the Bankhead is primarily a live performance venue, concerts, artists who come in and perform. But one of the things they've also done the last few years at the Bankhead is have what they call a summer family film series, where they'll bring in some films and show them. And it's inexpensive, and you can get popcorn and soft drinks and candy. And it's the only time they let you take food into the theater. And we hadn't been back. I mean, the Bankhead has not been open for over a year. But there was a movie this last week, and Carol and I had gotten tickets ahead of time, and we went to the movie, and it was kind of cool. Now, a lot of the volunteers at the Bankhead were still wearing masks, but masking was optional if you were fully vaccinated. They had signs saying, if you're not fully vaccinated, we ask you to wear a mask. If you are fully vaccinated, you don't have to. We're not going to ask at the door. We're trusting you. I saw volunteers and staff members wearing masks. I don't think I saw any of the attendees wearing masks. It wasn't a huge crowd, and there was still seat separation, because when they sold the tickets for this, it was before things had opened up completely, and they were still limiting attendance. But there were maybe 75 people there, and it was just fun to get back out and to do something like that. And you could see people out in the courtyard outside the theater and on the streets and doing things, stopping to get ice cream and eating outdoors at restaurants. It was nice weather. It was just kind of cool to do that. It was just fun to get back out. We've got some other things that we're getting ready to do along those lines in the coming weeks. But we've also been talking about some things that we can be doing with the grandkids over the next few months even. Some of this is summertime, some activity. Some of it is stuff that we may wait and do in the fall. But it's just this idea of being able to get back out there. I know people in this area have been starting to go to the beach. There are beaches not far from where we live. You can get over to Half Moon Bay and some of the other beaches near San Francisco. And people are starting to get back out. Santa Cruz, boardwalk is open again. And people are starting to re-engage in that kind of activity. Are the fairs coming back in your area? They're going to be the county fairs, the state fair. Have you heard announcements about that? We know, like, for instance, in California, the theme parks are reopening now, and some of them are lifting the restrictions on number of people that can be in the park and the mask requirements and that kind of thing. Now, some people are very nervous about that, especially when there have been things in the news about the Delta variant of COVID that may be springing up, has already been showing in certain areas and could impact some of this. And I think I've heard some people expressing concern that by late fall or winter, maybe we're back into a shutdown or semi-shutdown situation. We'll see. You know, one of the things that we've learned over this last year is there's only so much you can predict. There's only so much that we can take for granted. What are you doing? So I'll tell you some of the things we're talking about doing with the grandkids. I think will be fun. And again, part of it is we're waiting for the weather to cool down a little bit. But in San Jose, which is just about a half hour from here, you may have heard about Winchester Mystery House, which is the old house of Sarah Winchester, is that her name? But the Winchester family that made the Winchester rifles, and Sarah Winchester was very, she was very superstitious and believed in that there were spirits haunting her because her father had made this and grandfather had made the rifle and killed people. And she did some weird stuff with building the house. It's a cool house to go through if you've never seen it or heard about it. We're talking about taking the grandsons and doing a tour of Winchester Mystery House. We thought about doing it this weekend, but they're already sold out. They're just getting into reopening mode, full reopening mode for their tours. And the tours were sold out today. We're not doing that yet. We're talking about taking our older grandsons out to Alcatraz. I've been out there before. Carol's never been out there. And we thought, well, that would be a fun trip because you go out on one of the ferries, takes you out there, and then there's a self-guided tour through the old prison at Alcatraz. And it's kind of cool to do. We want to take our youngest grandson, Nicholas, to the California Train Museum in Sacramento. Go on Amtrak. You can take an Amtrak train from Oakland into Sacramento that stops just a few blocks away from the train museum. That's a cool museum to go to. And then we're just talking about even doing some tours in San Francisco. We've done this with the older grandkids before, but taking, you take the ferry across from Oakland to San Francisco to the pier in San Francisco, walk around over by the piers. There's stuff to see, shopping that you can do, restaurants over there. And then you can go up and you can catch the cable cars, the old San Francisco cable car, and ride the cable car into downtown San Francisco. And, you know, there's just some cool things to experience there as well. We talked about the fact that there are parts of San Francisco we've never taken the older grandsons to and do like a hop-on, hop-off tour with the open buses and that type of thing. So we're just talking about some little day excursions around here. Livermore, just a few miles from here, a lot of people don't realize is really part of California's wine country. People think of the Napa area, the Sonoma area, where a lot of the big wineries are, famous wineries. But there are some name wineries and some cool things to do in and around those wineries in Livermore. Has become one of the key places for winemaking, and some of those wineries do weekend shows and activities as well. So there's plenty to do around here, and we're going to try to get out and get back out there a little bit. And it does feel weird at first when we have been more isolated, more confined, and more restricted over the last 15 months to think about going places and to think about going places without a mask. Now seems a little bit weird. We've gotten acclimated, we've gotten normalized regarding certain things. So it's just kind of strange. So I see that you are putting things in the chat. I do want to hear your ideas. What about vacations? Anybody planning an actual vacation, like going camping, taking a trip to a location, getting in your motorhome and driving, flying someplace? And actually, you know, there again, as things open up, both domestically and internationally, you know, some people are beginning to talk about even international trips again. As places are beginning to open up. There's still some limitations on that. You need to really know what you need to do to get into a certain country. And once you're in the country, some of them are not completely open to outsiders, or particularly to people from the States, because I don't know, there's just, you know, there've been these fears and concerns. What are you planning on doing and when? If you are not quite ready yet to get out there, I'd also be curious about what you're doing to try to feel like you're getting back into some type of normalizing this summer, even if it's still staying around home. What are you going to do? And who are you involving in that? If you have family, you know, even if it's just getting back out to see some family again, how are you handling that? We want to be able to get back to this place where we feel like we've got the freedom, right, to do what we want to do. We want to be at a place. I think all of us, we are by nature, we are created to be people who interact with people, who interact with the world around us. And it's tough when we feel like we can't. But the other thing is, it's also tough when we feel like we're not sure if our confidence level, if our sense of security has been interrupted. We find that we're in that place of that arguing with self, that dichotomy of, I want to get back out there. I need to get back out there. I don't know if I'm ready to do that. I don't know if I feel safe doing that. So it's just, I think we're just at that interesting crossroads. There's been a sense, I told somebody recently, it's almost felt very recently like we're kind of in limbo. It's the flip side of the limbo coin that we were in 15 months ago when we were first getting word that we needed to isolate a little bit. We need to step back. Things were shutting down, but there was not a real sense of how long that was going to be, what that really meant. At first, they weren't telling us that we should be wearing masks and less. And there was the guidelines and the understanding was not real clear. And it kind of felt like we were in this place between what we should be doing and what we were doing, and kind of between fantasy and reality. And in a way, it almost feels like the flip side of that coin now, doesn't it? Do you feel that? Like, as we've been coming out of this, there's still a sense of, okay, I know what has now become the normal over the last year, but what is the new normal? What are we moving into? So this wasn't specifically about, COVID, but it's just as we are trying to get back engaging in activities. What does that look like for you? Hey, Kathy McCormick, it's good to see you on there. And I know I probably missed saying hello to some people. I'm actually going to scroll up for a minute and see if I missed anybody I need to say hi to so that I don't get in trouble for missing you here. I think I've said hi to most everybody whose names I'm seeing here, but and I heard, did I catch that Piper is watching with her mom? Hi, Piper, if you're there. And yeah, okay. Hopefully I've caught you. If I didn't, I'll be looking at all of these comments later, and I'll say hi. And I apologize if I didn't say hi to you out loud. But we're coming down to the wire here. Continue to put your comments in, and if you're tuning in later, if you were coffee break, moderator Cat was not greeted upon his arrival. Hello, moderator Cat. It's Christopher. My apologies, moderator Cat, because you provide a tremendous service for us on Coffee Breaks with Steve. Carissa's on here today. Shalane's. I got the full production crew on here. I don't know if you know that Christopher, Carissa, Shalane are my main live production crew. And sometimes just because of other schedules, they're not always able to be here. Whoever thought, yeah, Jerry Thompson. Oh man, that's right. Going into a bank wearing a mask, going into certain places where you've always been told no masks, and now you're being told you have to wear a mask to come in. I know there were some banks in our area that actually were not doing any kind of inside service. You could go to, if there was like a vestibule that had an ATM or something, or an ATM outside, but they weren't providing any in-person services. It was all online, over the phone. I don't know how they were handling things like loan applications. Maybe they were meeting, in a parking lot someplace. I don't know. Anyway, listen, we're going to be signing off here in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for sharing your ideas, your summer plans. I want to continue to hear those, so please continue to post those. Partially because I just think we all, it's just interesting to know what people are doing, but we also get ideas from each other. And I want to know your ideas. I want to know what you're thinking about doing. Maybe it'll help me with my plans. I want to tell you what's coming up. Next week is the 4th of July weekend. We'll be on the air on July 3rd, and Sunday is July 4th. And so we're going to be talking a little bit. I think in past years, we've talked a little bit about celebrating Independence Day and, picnics. And that might be part of your summer plans. Maybe you're going to be able to get back out there next weekend and be involved in a picnic or a fireworks display going off someplace. That's cool. But we're going to do a little game next week. Sometimes we do this, and we're going to play some American history trivia specifically around Independence Day. I'm going to have some questions for you. I'm going to see if you can, on the honor system, not be on Google while I'm asking the questions, and see how many of these old trivia questions you can answer. It's just kind of fun facts about 4th of July, about Independence Day and the Declaration of Independence. That'll be next week. July 10th, we're going to talk about making life decisions. The things in our lives that really change: career decisions, buying a house, getting married, starting a family, planning for retirement, life decisions, things that you have to do that are really things that affect more than just the moment, but they're really going to affect things in your life. How do you do that? What are some tools? What are some things that the experts say we should be doing? That's in a couple of weeks. And yes, watch Hamilton in preparation, Shalane. That would be a good way to do it. Also, there's a great HBO series on Amazon Prime, John Adams, with Paul Giamatti as John Adams, the series. And there's one episode specifically that covers the Declaration of Independence. And I don't know if it's exactly accurate, but it's cool to watch. Anyway, and then on July 17th, we're going to do something else that's fun that will be interactive. We're going to play Mad Lib Theater. We're going to have some Mad Lib words for you to fill in as an audience. We're going to have a moderator who will help gather the words. And then Shalane is going to be on as my guest that day. And she and I will then take the Mad Lib that you provide, the words that you provide, into a script. And we will do a reader's theater from that Mad Lib for you. We'll perform that for you on that date. So that's what's coming up over the next 3 weeks or so. Just be ready for that. I'm going to let you get on with your weekend so you can stay cool. Please stay cool. Please stay hydrated. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Take care of your pets if you have them, because they have to deal with this as well. And just going to remind you that, we're in this time of transition. And we kind of have to think things through differently, but we can always think about what we can do that makes a difference. I'm just going to remind you, as I do every week, find a way to make a difference in your world this week. And maybe that just begins by making a difference in your home to protect yourself from the heat. But find a way to make a difference in your world this week. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. God bless you. It's good to see you, and I'll see you again soon.